Against the vast canvas of space, the Starship Odyssey cut through the darkness like a silver arrow. Its polished hull caught the light of distant stars, creating a gentle glow that mirrored the hope and anticipation of its crew. Ambassador Heijin Park stood motionless at the observation deck's panoramic window, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched countless stars drift past. The message that had brought them here still played in his mind. After 73 years of reaching for the stars, humanity had finally received its invitation to join the Galactic Council. The diplomatic package had arrived via quantum transmission, its contents changing everything they knew about their place in the universe. The Odyssey's deck hummed softly beneath his feet as the ship's artificial gravity adjusted to their deceleration. Heijin's reflection in the window showed a man in his early 50s, wearing the formal dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. His eyes carried the weight of responsibility. He represented not just a nation, but all of humanity. Quick footsteps approached from behind. Jia-Yun Li, his trusted assistant for the past 5 years, moved with purpose across the deck. Her uniform matched his, though adorned with silver instead of gold trim. The data pad she carried cast a soft blue glow on her determined face. "Ambassador, the latest briefings have arrived," Jia-Yun said, her voice carrying a mix of excitement and professional composure. "The Council's preliminary welcome package includes details about the station's layout and basic protocols for first contact scenarios." Heijin turned from the window, accepting the data pad with a grateful nod. "What's your first impression of these materials, Jia-Yun?" She hesitated for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "The protocols seem extensive, almost as if they're designed to keep new species at arm's length while appearing welcoming." Heijin nodded slowly, scanning through the documents. The Council's station emerged from the darkness ahead of them, growing larger with each passing moment. Its structure defied traditional engineering concepts. Crystalline spires stretched out in every direction, connected by graceful arches that seemed to float in space. Patches of bioluminescent material pulsed with soft light, creating patterns that reminded Heijin of neural networks. 300 species, he murmured, each with their own agenda, their own history, their own way of seeing the universe. The station housed representatives from every major spacefaring civilization in their arm of the galaxy. Some had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out written language. The Odyssey's captain, Da Ho Kang, spoke through the ship's communication system. "Ambassador Park, we're beginning our final approach. The Council has assigned us Docking Bay 47. Their traffic control is quite insistent about following their vectors exactly." "Understood, Captain. Let's not ruffle any feathers before we even arrive." Heijin turned to Jia-Yun, ready to make history. The shuttle bay was a hive of activity as the diplomatic team made their final preparations. Support staff checked and rechecked their equipment while security personnel conducted last-minute briefings. Heijin watched as his team of 12, carefully selected from nations across Earth, moved with practiced efficiency. The shuttle itself was a masterpiece of human engineering, sleek, elegant, and designed to showcase humanity's technological capabilities without appearing threatening. Its pearl-white exterior carried the United Earth emblem, a stylized globe surrounded by olive branches reaching toward the stars. As they boarded, Heijin felt the weight of the moment settle over him. First impressions would be crucial. Humanity's future might well depend on how they conducted themselves in the coming days. The journey from the Odyssey to the station took 20 minutes, each second bringing new details of the massive structure into focus. What had looked like simple crystalline surfaces from afar revealed themselves to be intricate lattices of unknown materials. Energy fields shimmered between the spires, creating protective barriers that rippled with rainbow hues. Their shuttle passed through these barriers with a slight tingle that set everyone's teeth on edge. The docking procedure was automated, their craft guided by invisible forces into its designated bay. Through the viewport, Heijin could see other diplomatic vessels, some organic-looking, others geometric, and some that challenged human understanding of what a spacecraft should look like. The docking bay itself was a marvel of engineering. Artificial gravity shifted smoothly as they touched down, adjusting to match the station's standard. The air pressure equalized with a soft hiss, and environmental readings showed a perfectly maintained atmosphere. As the shuttle's door opened, He-Jin got his first direct look at the welcoming committee. 6 different species stood in a semicircle, each distinctly alien yet carrying themselves with diplomatic poise. But something in their stance made him pause. The tallest delegate, a being with iridescent scales and multiple arms, seemed to lean away slightly. Another, roughly humanoid but with crystalline growths instead of hair, shifted forward with what He-Jin could only interpret as aggressive interest. The others displayed subtle but noticeable reactions to the human delegation's arrival. Jai-Yun stepped closer to He-Jin, speaking softly. "Sir, are you seeing this? Their body language." "I see it," he whispered back. "Keep your observations coming, but let's proceed as planned." The delegation stepped forward, He-Jin at their head. They had practiced first contact protocols extensively, but theory was meeting reality in ways they hadn't quite expected. Something felt off about the welcome, a discord in the carefully choreographed diplomatic dance. The crystalline-haired being stepped forward, raising its arms in what their briefings had described as a universal greeting gesture. "Welcome, representatives of Earth, to the Grand Council Station. We are honored to receive your species among the civilized worlds of our galaxy." The words were perfect, the translation flawless, but He-Jin couldn't shake the feeling that something lurked beneath the surface. As his team was led toward the station's diplomatic quarters, he made mental notes of every detail. The way other species representatives watched them from shadowed corridors, the subtle separations in living quarters, the carefully worded responses to direct questions. They were here now, embarking on humanity's greatest diplomatic mission. But as He-Jin watched his team settle into their assigned spaces, he couldn't help but wonder what they had really walked into. The stars had called to humanity for centuries, promising wonders and possibilities. Now that they were here, among those very wonders, he found himself wondering if they had been too eager to answer that call. The soft glow of computer screens lit the cramped office space as Jai-Yun rubbed her tired eyes. The station's artificial day cycle had shifted to night hours, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was hidden in the massive document before her. 3 weeks of diplomatic meetings had produced thousands of pages of agreements, and something about the wording kept nagging at her mind. She took another sip of her coffee substitute, a purple liquid that tasted like mint and berries. The station's food synthesizers had yet to master Earth beverages, but the alien drink kept her alert. Her eyes caught an odd pattern in the document's formatting. Tiny inconsistencies in the spacing that most would overlook. "Computer, run a deep structure analysis on section 47.3, she commanded. The screen flickered, revealing layers of embedded code beneath the seemingly standard diplomatic text. Jai-Yun sat up straighter, her fatigue forgotten. This was no simple formatting error. She reached for her communication device, sending a priority message to Taiwan Kim. The cryptography expert had been essential to their mission, though he spent most of his time in the background. Within minutes, he appeared at her door, his usual neat appearance slightly rumpled from sleep. "This better be good," he said, but his eyes lit up when she showed him the screen. "Oh, this is very interesting." They worked through the station's night cycle, their fingers flying over keyboards as they peeled back layer after layer of hidden code. The standard text of the agreement spoke of mutual cooperation and cultural exchange. The encrypted subsections told a very different story. "Look at this," Taiwan pointed to a particular segment. "They've buried resource management clauses inside what appears to be standard trade protocols." His fingers traced the complex web of requirements. According to this, Earth would be required to submit all major mining operations for council approval. Jai-Yun frowned, pulling up another section. "And here, they're claiming oversight rights for our water resources. They've masked it as environmental protection, but the language gives them direct control. More disturbing details emerged as they dug deeper. The Council's authority would extend beyond simple resource management. They would have the power to restrict Earth's industrial development, control population growth in certain areas, and even influence technological advancement. This isn't a partnership, Taiwan explained, highlighting key passages that made his hands shake slightly. They're setting us up to become a resource colony. Everything else, the cultural exchange, the technology sharing, the seat on the council, it's all window dressing. Jia-yun sat back, her mind racing. We need to tell the ambassador. Wait, Taiwan held up a hand. We need to be careful. If they went to this much trouble to hide these terms, they won't be happy about us finding them. They spent the next hour copying the evidence to secure devices and removing traces of their investigation from the station's systems. As they worked, Jia-yun noticed small cameras in the corners of the room adjusting their position. They were being watched. The next morning, Jia-yun waited until He-jin's schedule showed a private moment between meetings. She found him in the Earth delegation's secure conference room, reviewing notes from the morning session. Ambassador, she started, her voice low despite the room's security measures. We found something you need to see. He-jin listened carefully as Jia-yun and Taiwan presented their findings. His expression remained neutral, but his fingers tightened on his datapad as they explained the hidden terms. Have you noticed the smaller civilizations during council sessions? He-jin asked when they finished. The way they speak, how they carry themselves. Jia-yun nodded. They seem resigned, like they're going through motions they've seen before. Because they have. He-jin stood, pacing the room. I've been watching them. The newer members especially. They speak in careful, measured tones. They make suggestions without really suggesting anything. They agree without fully agreeing. Taiwan pulled up more data. We found references to other membership agreements. The patterns are the same. Hidden clauses, resource control, technological restrictions. Those civilizations, they're all trapped in the same system. He-jin moved to the window, looking out at the massive station structure. We need more evidence. Start looking into trade records, development patterns of member worlds. But be careful. We can't let them know we've discovered this. Over the next few days, He-jin attended council sessions with new awareness. He watched as representatives from younger civilizations presented their reports. Careful, measured words that never quite crossed into complaint. Their worlds were developing, they would say, thanks to council guidance, but their eyes told different stories. The larger, older civilizations dominated discussions. They spoke of unity and progress while steering conversations away from certain topics. Resource allocation, industrial development, military capability. Each topic was addressed in broad terms, never specifics. Jia-yun and Taiwan worked carefully, gathering data bit by bit. They found patterns in trade routes that always seemed to benefit the older council members. Development projects that looked like aid but created dependency. Military restrictions disguised as peacekeeping measures. The evidence mounted, painting a picture of a system designed to maintain power structures that had existed for centuries. New civilizations weren't being invited as equals. They were being absorbed into a carefully controlled hierarchy. He-jin kept their discovery quiet, building their case methodically. During meetings, he played his role perfectly, the grateful representative of a young civilization, eager to join the galactic community. But in secure rooms, away from watching eyes, he prepared for what would come next. They weren't just fighting for Earth's future anymore. They had stumbled onto something bigger, a system that had trapped countless civilizations in subtle bondage. The question wasn't just whether Earth would join the Council anymore. The question was what they would do with the truth they had uncovered. The Grand Council chamber stretched upward in sweeping crystalline arches, its transparent walls catching and reflecting the light of distant stars. Thousands of representatives from across the galaxy filled the tiered seating, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Today was meant to be a celebration, Earth's formal acceptance into the Galactic Council. He-Jin Park stood at the speaker's podium, his heart beating steadily despite the weight of the moment. Behind him, Jai-Yun and Taiwan waited with their evidence carefully prepared. The council's senior members sat in their elevated positions, looking down with what they probably thought were benevolent expressions. Honored representatives. He-Jin began, his voice clear and strong. Earth has spent these past weeks learning about the council's processes and studying the proposed membership agreement. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the chamber. We have learned much more than you intended. A murmur rippled through the assembly. The senior council member, a tall being with silver-scaled skin, leaned forward slightly. Ambassador Park, this is most irregular. The voting process has a standard format. Yes, He-Jin interrupted smoothly. Everything here has a standard format, doesn't it? Standard procedures, standard agreements, standard methods of control. He nodded to Jai-Yun, who activated the chamber's main display system. Documents began appearing in the air above them, text highlighted and enhanced. These are the hidden clauses in Earth's membership agreement, the ones buried under layers of encryption, the ones that would give the Council complete control over our resources, our development, our future. The chamber erupted in whispers. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others sat very still, their attention fixed on the display. But Earth's agreement isn't unique, is it? He-Jin continued. More documents appeared, floating side by side. These are membership agreements from 12 different worlds, spanning the last century. The patterns are identical. The control mechanisms are the same. The only thing that changes is how deeply they're hidden. The senior council member stood, his scales flickering with color. Ambassador, you are making accusations without evidence. Taiwan stepped forward, inputting new commands. Trade routes appeared in glowing lines. Resource flow patterns emerged in clear graphics. The evidence is in your own records. Every new member world follows the same pattern. Resources flow outward. Technology transfer is restricted. Military development is suppressed. All while the Council speaks of unity and progress. He-Jin watched as younger civilization representatives began to stir. He saw recognition in their eyes, saw the moment when they realized they weren't alone in their experiences. We've analyzed the development patterns of member worlds over the past 200 years, Jai-Yun added, bringing up new displays. The data shows systematic exploitation disguised as assistance, trade agreements that create dependency, aid programs that ensure control. The chamber's whispers grew louder. The senior council members were conferring urgently among themselves, their usual calm composure cracking. Earth came here in good faith. He-Jin's voice cut through the growing noise. We came seeking partnership, seeking to join a community of equals. Instead, we found a system designed to trap developing civilizations in permanent subservience. He straightened, squaring his shoulders. Therefore, Earth respectfully declines membership in the Galactic Council. The chamber exploded into chaos. Shouts and protests filled the air. But then something unexpected happened. The Tran delegation, representatives of a civilization that had joined the Council just 30 years ago, stood as one. Their leader, a being of crystalline form that caught and reflected the chamber's light, spoke in a clear, ringing voice. The Tran Collective stands with Earth. More movement. The Kilari representatives rose, their feathered crests extended in defiance. Kilari stands with Earth. One by one, newer member worlds began to rise. Each declaration added to the growing wave of dissent. The senior council members watched in barely concealed horror as their carefully maintained system began to crack. Order. The senior council member's voice boomed through the chamber. This is unprecedented. These accusations are baseless. Are they? A new voice joined in. One of the mid-tier council members, a species that had held membership for over 5 centuries, stood slowly. We have watched this pattern repeat for too long. We have been complicit in our silence. He-Jin watched as the chamber's dynamics shifted. Centuries of carefully maintained control were unraveling in minutes. The evidence was irrefutable, but more than that, it gave voice to what so many had felt, but never dared to say. The Council claims to represent unity among the stars, He Jin said into the charged atmosphere. But true unity cannot be built on deception and control. Earth will not participate in this system. We will not be bound by these hidden chains. More delegations were standing now. The chamber had become a sea of movement and voices. Some called for immediate reform. Others demanded investigations. The senior council's attempts to restore order were drowned out by centuries of suppressed grievances finally finding voice. Jia stepped close to He Jin, speaking softly. "This is more than we expected." "Sometimes," he replied, watching as alliances that had stood for centuries began to shift and change. "All it takes is one voice speaking the truth to change everything." The breaking point had been reached. In exposing the truth about their own membership agreement, Earth had triggered something much larger. The question now wasn't just about Earth's membership, it was about the future of galactic cooperation itself. As the chaos continued to unfold, He Jin stood firm at the podium. Change was coming to the galaxy, ready or not. And it had started with a simple decision to walk away from a bad deal. Young Li Cho stared at the streams of data flowing across her multiple screens aboard the Odyssey. Trade routes glowed like golden threads across galactic maps, shifting and changing as new agreements were forged. The past week had seen more changes in galactic commerce than the previous century. Another request for trade talks, her assistant announced, adding a new notification to her already crowded display. The Meridian worlds want to discuss direct resource exchanges. Young Mi nodded, her fingers moving swiftly across the haptic interface. As Earth's leading expert in xenoeconomics, she had prepared for years for first contact. But nothing had prepared her for this, helping to rebuild the galaxy's entire economic structure. "Show me their resource profiles," she said, studying the new data. "Look at these manufacturing capabilities." The Council kept them focused on raw material extraction, but they have so much more potential. The news of Earth's dramatic exit from the Council had spread faster than light through the quantum communication networks. The evidence they had presented sparked a chain reaction that was still growing. Every day, more civilizations announced their withdrawal from the Council's control. Young Mi's team worked around the clock, coordinating with He Jin's diplomatic corps to handle the flood of requests for new trade partnerships. The Independent Systems Alliance was taking shape, built on principles of fair exchange and mutual growth. The Tran Collective's manufacturing centers could complement the Kiluri's research facilities, she noted, drawing connections between potential partners. Add Earth's innovation models, and we could see technological advancement rates triple within a year. The Council had maintained power partly by keeping member worlds dependent and isolated from each other. Now, as those barriers fell, the potential for cooperation was staggering. Species that had been restricted to specific economic roles for centuries were discovering new possibilities. A priority message flashed on her screen. The Altarian Republic, one of the mid-tier council members, wanted to discuss joining the alliance. Young Mi's heart raced. This could be the tipping point they needed. "Get me a secure channel to Ambassador Park," she requested. "He needs to see this." He Jin's hologram appeared moments later. Despite the busy days, he looked energized. "Young Mi, tell me you have good news." "Better than good," she said, sharing her screen. "The Altarians want in. Their trading fleet is one of the largest in the sector, and their network of space stations could become vital hubs for the Alliance. The Council won't let them go easily," He Jin warned, but his expression was hopeful. "They might not have a choice," Young Mi replied, pulling up more data. "Look at these market trends. The Council's economic control is already slipping. Traditional trade routes are shifting. Member worlds are bypassing Council oversight to establish direct partnerships." She showed him projections of resource flows and economic growth patterns. The old model of controlled development was being replaced by a web of mutual cooperation. Worlds that had been held back were starting to realize their full potential. We're seeing technological sharing agreements between species that never worked together before, she continued. The Kilari's biotech advances combined with Tran manufacturing processes could revolutionize medical technology across the galaxy. A new alert caught her attention. Another group of systems had declared independence from Council oversight, forming their own regional cooperative based on the alliance model. It's spreading faster than we anticipated, Ho Jin observed. The Council's power structure is crumbling. Young Mi nodded, watching as more trade routes shifted on her display. They maintained control by keeping everyone isolated and dependent. But once species start working together, sharing resources and technology openly, she gestured at the changing patterns. This is just the beginning. The next few days brought a constant stream of developments. Yum Mi's team worked to coordinate the growing network of partnerships, ensuring that the new system wouldn't repeat the Council's mistakes. Every agreement was transparent, every exchange based on mutual benefit. Species that had been competitors under Council rule discovered complementary strengths. Research consortiums formed, combining different approaches to science and technology. Cultural exchange programs flourished alongside trade agreements. Look at these development projections, Young Mi showed her team during their daily briefing. Worlds that were restricted to resource extraction are already planning manufacturing centers. Research facilities are being built on planets that were limited to farming. The Council made desperate attempts to maintain control, threatening economic sanctions against worlds that left their authority. But their power was built on a system that was falling apart. With each new partnership formed outside their control, their influence weakened further. Young Mi worked late into the night, coordinating with representatives from dozens of worlds. The alliance was growing into something more than just an alternative to the Council. It was becoming a new model for galactic cooperation. We're not just changing trade patterns, she remarked to Ho Jin during one of their update meetings. We're changing how species interact with each other. The Council's system kept everyone focused on their own interests, competing for Council favor. Now they're learning to work together. The data streams continued to show the ripple effects spreading across the galaxy. Regional cooperatives formed, adapted, and grew. The old power structure wasn't just crumbling. It was being replaced by something better. Young Mi added another successful negotiation to her records, watching as new trade routes appeared on her map. The galaxy was transforming, one partnership at a time, and it had all started with Earth's decision to walk away from a bad deal. She smiled as another request for trade talks appeared on her screen. The future was unfolding in ways no one had predicted, and she was helping to shape it. The ripple effect showed no signs of slowing down. The Council station's lights flickered as another wave of departing ships cleared the docking bays. Defense Coordinator Sung Ho Park monitored the exodus from the Odyssey's command center, watching as newly independent worlds withdrew their representatives and resources. Another transport fleet from the Meridian sector just cleared Council space, his tactical officer reported. They're requesting escort to Alliance territory. Sung Ho nodded, dispatching 2 Earth vessels to guide the fleet to safety. The Council's desperate attempts to maintain control had turned increasingly aggressive. Trade routes were blocked. Resources were seized. Independent worlds faced mounting pressure to return to Council authority. Ambassador Park is requesting a status update, his communication officer announced. Put him through, Sung Ho replied, organizing his latest reports. He Jin's hologram appeared on the bridge, looking tired but determined. How are our protective operations proceeding? He Jin asked without preamble. We're maintaining coverage of major exit routes, Sung Ho explained, sharing his tactical display. Earth ships are coordinating with Tran and Kilari vessels to ensure safe passage for withdrawing members. The Council's enforcement fleet is active, but they're spread thin trying to cover too much space. The tactical display showed the changing situation. Green markers indicated Alliance ships and friendly vessels, while red markers showed Council military presence. The balance was shifting daily as more worlds chose independence. The Council just announced new sanctions against the Altarian Republic. He Jin informed him. They're trying to make an example of larger worlds that leave their control. Sung Ho studied the updated information. The Altarians have significant defensive capabilities. The Council won't risk direct military action against them. No, but they're blocking trade routes, seizing assets, trying to pressure them back into the fold. He Jin's expression was grim. We need to show the galaxy that leaving the Council doesn't mean facing these threats alone. The next few hours brought a flurry of activity. Sung Ho coordinated with defense leaders from other independent worlds, organizing mutual protection agreements. The Alliance wasn't building a military force. They were creating a network of cooperation that made aggressive action impossible. Look at these patrol patterns, he showed He Jin during their next update. Mixed crews, shared command structures, cooperative training exercises. We're not just protecting trade routes, we're showing what real partnership looks like. He Jin nodded approvingly. The Council maintained power through division and control. Our strength comes from working together. A priority alert flashed across Sung Ho's screen. The Council's enforcement fleet was moving toward a cluster of recently independent worlds in the Carina sector. Their intentions were clear: intimidation through show of force. They're testing us, Sung Ho observed, already dispatching response units, seeing how we'll react to direct pressure. The response came not just from Earth vessels, but from ships across the Alliance. Tran cruisers moved to protect vital space lanes. Kilari sensor platforms provided early warning coverage. Even smaller worlds contributed what they could to the joint effort. The Council's leadership is meeting an emergency session, He Jin reported later that day. Our united response has them worried. They've never faced coordinated resistance like this. Sung Ho watched as another group of ships appeared on his tactical display. Refugees from Council space seeking protection. They're used to dealing with isolated worlds they can pressure individually. They don't know how to handle species working together as equals. The Council's attempts to maintain control grew more desperate but less effective. Their authority had been based on the isolation of member worlds. Now, as those worlds discovered the strength of cooperation, the old power structure was crumbling. He Jin called an emergency meeting of the Alliance leadership. Representatives gathered virtually from across the galaxy, their holograms filling the Odyssey's conference room. We're not looking for conflict, He Jin assured the assembly of independent worlds. We're offering partnership. The Council's threats only show why their system must change. Together, we can build something better. The message resonated. More worlds announced their independence. The Council's enforcement fleet found itself facing not military opposition, but a united front of worlds determined to chart their own course. Sung Ho's tactical displays told the story. The red markers showing Council military presence were retreating, pulling back to core territories. The green network of Alliance cooperation grew stronger each day. They're realizing that intimidation won't work anymore, he told He Jin during their evening briefing. The power vacuum they feared isn't leading to chaos. It's leading to cooperation they never imagined possible. The Council's last attempt at maintaining control came in the form of a grand proclamation, threatening severe consequences for worlds that rejected their authority. The response was not what they expected. World after world transmitted the same message. We choose partnership over control. We choose cooperation over intimidation. We choose freedom over fear. The Council's power crumbled not with a bang, but with the quiet determination of species choosing to work together. Sung Ho watched from his command center as the old order faded and a new one took shape. It's not about military might, he remarked to He Jin as they watched another group of worlds join the Alliance. It's about showing a better way forward. The galaxy was transforming. The power vacuum left by the Council's declining authority wasn't leading to chaos. It was being filled by something stronger than control. Genuine cooperation between free worlds. The Northern Spiral Trade Center gleamed like a jewel against the backdrop of space, its design reflecting the combined architectural brilliance of 12 different species. Jia Yun walked through its bustling halls, now serving as Earth's chief diplomat to the Northern Spiral Association. The center had become a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors, their conversations a mix of languages and translation devices. Where the council station had maintained careful separation between species, here they mingled freely, sharing ideas and building connections. The latest technology exchange conference is ready to begin, her assistant informed her, hurrying to keep pace. Representatives from 23 worlds are waiting in the main hall. Jia Yun smiled, remembering how different things had been just months ago. The regional associations that had emerged from the Council's collapse had transformed galactic politics. The Northern Spiral Association was just one of many, each finding its own way to foster cooperation between neighboring systems. In the main conference hall, she took her place at the circular table. There were no elevated positions here, no hierarchy of seating. Every world, whether newly spacefaring or ancient, had an equal voice. "Welcome, everyone," she began, looking around at the gathered representatives. "Today we're discussing the integration of TRAN manufacturing techniques with Kilari biotech advances. The potential benefits for medical technology are extraordinary." The discussion flowed naturally, each species offering insights from their unique perspective. This was what Young Mai had predicted in her economic models. When barriers fell and cooperation replaced control, innovation accelerated. A holographic display in the center of the table showed trade routes crisscrossing the northern spiral. Unlike the rigid, controlled paths of the Council era, these routes adapted dynamically to serve the needs of all worlds in the region. "Production has tripled in the outer systems," reported the TRAN representative, his crystalline form catching the light. "Access to new markets and technologies has revolutionized our manufacturing capabilities." Similar reports came from around the table. Worlds that had been restricted to resource extraction were developing diverse economies. Research centers were being built on planets that had never hosted them before. Cultural exchange programs were leading to breakthroughs in art, science, and technology. During a break in the proceedings, Jia Yun received an update from Young Mai. The economist's projections had been remarkably accurate. Prosperity was spreading through the independent systems faster than anyone had expected. "The free flow of ideas is the key," Young Mai's message explained. "When species can share knowledge without restriction, everyone benefits." The Council's control wasn't just political, it was holding back the natural development of civilization itself. Jia Yun saw the truth of this everywhere she looked. In the research laboratories where scientists from different worlds worked side by side. In the markets where traders exchanged not just goods but cultural insights. In the education centers where young beings from across the galaxy learned together. The afternoon session focused on a new initiative, the galaxy-wide knowledge network. Unlike the Council's restricted information systems, this would be an open platform for sharing scientific and cultural knowledge. "Think of the possibilities," Jia Yun told the assembled representatives. "Every discovery, every breakthrough, every artistic achievement available to all. Not controlled or censored, but shared freely for the benefit of everyone." The enthusiasm in the room was palpable. Species that had once been rivals under Council rule were now eager partners in building something new. The old restrictions were falling away, replaced by a spirit of open exchange and mutual growth. A message arrived from He Jin, who was coordinating with other regional associations. Similar transformations were happening across the galaxy. The Southern Rim Cooperative was pioneering new approaches to sustainable development. The Core Worlds Alliance was revolutionizing transportation technology. "We're not just replacing the Council's system," Jia Yun realized as she read the reports. "We're creating something they never imagined possible." The day ended with a cultural exchange event in the center's grand hall. Music from a dozen worlds blended in strange but beautiful harmony. Artwork from across the galaxy adorned the walls. Beings who would never have mixed under Council rule shared meals and stories. As Jia Yun prepared her daily report, she thought about how far they had come. The Council's collapse hadn't led to the chaos they had predicted. Instead, it had released the natural tendency of intelligent beings to work together, to share, to grow. The regional associations aren't perfect, she wrote in her report. We face challenges every day. But we face them together, as equals, finding solutions through cooperation rather than control. She looked out at the stars through the center's vast windows. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Council were watching as their carefully maintained system was replaced by something more organic, more alive. This was more than just a new dawn for galactic politics. It was the beginning of a new way of thinking about civilization itself. Not as something to be controlled and directed, but as something to be nurtured and allowed to grow naturally. The Northern Spiral Trade Center continued its endless dance around its star, a beacon of light in the darkness of space. Inside its halls, the future was being built, one connection at a time. Stars twinkled through the crystalline dome of the Forum of Independent Worlds, once the seat of Council power, now transformed into something far more meaningful. Hijin stood at the observation deck, watching ships from across the galaxy dock at the station. Each vessel bore different markings, representing worlds that had once been bound by control, but were now united in cooperation. The station itself had changed dramatically over the past year. The imposing chambers of authority have been converted into open spaces for learning and exchange. Where the Council's high seats once stood, a circular gathering space now hosted scientists, artists, and diplomats from hundreds of worlds. Amazing how much can change in a year, Jia said, joining him at the window. She had just finished coordinating another successful cultural exchange program. Remember how it felt that first day? Hijin asked, smiling at the memory. Standing here, not knowing what we'd find. Below them, in what had once been the Council's restricted archives, researchers from 20 different species worked together in the new Galactic Science Center. The old barriers between disciplines had fallen away, leading to breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the Council's rigid control. Yumni's latest economic report sat on his data pad, filled with statistics that told a remarkable story. Trade volume had increased by 300% across independent systems. Technological advancement had accelerated in ways that defied prediction. But the numbers couldn't capture the real transformation. Hijin walked through the station's corridors, greeting beings who would once have been separated by Council protocols. A trans scientist discussed theory with a Kilari engineer. A group of young diplomats from newly spacefaring worlds learned from experienced negotiators. In his private office, once a Council member's chambers, Hijin began recording his personal log. 1 year ago, we made a choice that changed the galaxy. We didn't just walk away from a bad deal. We showed everyone a better path forward. He paused, looking at the collection of artifacts on his desk. Each one represented a milestone in the transformation. The first independent trade agreement, the founding charter of the Forum, artwork created by a collaboration of species that had once been rivals. The mystery of the Council's true nature wasn't really a mystery at all, he continued. They were doing what power structures always do, trying to maintain control through division and dependence. But they never understood that true strength comes from cooperation. A notification appeared on his screen. Another world had joined the Forum of Independent Worlds, not through coercion or hidden agreements, but through open discussion and genuine partnership. Earth's reputation has grown, he recorded, not as a destroyer of order, but as a catalyst for positive change. We showed that walking away from control doesn't mean choosing chaos. It means choosing to build something better. The station hummed with activity. In laboratories, workshops, and meeting rooms, species that had once competed for Council favor now worked together toward common goals. The old rivalries had been replaced by recognition of shared potential. Sung Ho's defense report showed how military tensions had decreased across the galaxy. The need for shows of force had diminished as worlds discovered the benefits of cooperation. Protection now came from mutual support rather than threats of retaliation. We're exploring deeper into space than ever before, Hijin noted in his log. Joint expeditions, shared discoveries, open exchange of findings. The galaxy is bigger and more wonderful than we imagined, and we're finally free to explore it together. He walked to the station's grand hall, where a celebration was beginning. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to mark the anniversary of the Council's transformation. There was no pomp, no ceremony, just beings coming together to share their achievements and plans. "A year ago," he told the gathered crowd, "we stood in this hall as rivals and supplicants. Today, we stand as partners and friends. We've proven that cooperation is stronger than control, that trust builds more than fear, that together we can achieve what none of us could alone." The applause that followed came in many forms: hands clapping, appendages waving, bioluminescent displays flashing. Each species expressed joy in its own way, but the feeling of unity was universal. Later, in the quiet of his office, Hu Jin finished his log entry. "The galaxy has entered a new era, not perfect, not without challenges, but built on mutual respect and genuine cooperation. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." He looked out at the stars, thinking of how far they'd come and how far they might go. The future was uncertain, but that was what made it exciting. They were writing a new chapter in galactic history, not through force or control, but through partnership and understanding. The Forum of Independent Worlds continued its eternal orbit, a beacon of hope in the vast darkness of space. Inside its halls, the legacy of Earth's choice lived on, not in monuments or proclamations, but in the daily reality of beings working together to build a better future for all. Thanks for reading. A story about choosing cooperation over control and how one brave choice can transform the future.